this rest of God. We know of it as a model. Exodus 20:11, the whole passage that gives us the 10 Commandments, it talks about the Sabbath day. It says, for in 6 days God created the heavens and the earth, and he rested on the seventh day. So this is the model that the Sabbath commandment is based on. The example is the basis of the Sabbath for Israel. But it's also unique. Because unlike humans resting on the Sabbath day from their work, he wasn't resting just because he'd done all this work and was tired. He didn't rest because of exertion. His rest is unique. It's different. And notice he emphasizes the seventh day. This is the first time a day keeps getting repeated. 3 times. In fact, in Hebrew, he crafts 3 sentences. Moses crafts 3 sentences in verse 2. And right in the middle is the phrase, seventh day. And on each side are 3 words. So again, beautiful literary form. But when you put it in the middle, seventh day, seventh day, seventh day, you'd almost think he was an Adventist. Sorry, couldn't resist. Seventh day. Why does he say seventh day so often? He's saying, I want you to understand the unique character of what is happening here. The unique character of this seventh day as opposed to the other 6. The other 6, forming, filling. Now, what does he do? On this day, he rested. He ceases from creation. Why? Because it's perfect. It's ready to be fully enjoyed. And I believe, and a number of commentators say this, that this is as if he's made it to enjoy it. Now he's sitting back and just taking it in and enjoying it. Some have suggested it's the rest of the king who is over it, and that this universe really is, in a sense, his throne. I mean, don't we have some scriptures say, heaven is my throne, earth is my footstool? Solomon, when he built the temple, he says, how can you let me build a temple? The heavens can't contain you. But there's a sense in which this universe is this amazingly beautiful throne of God. He rests. He blesses. Now, when he has blessed other things in the creation week, what has that meant? He's made something fruitful and beneficial. Fruitful and beneficial. He says, as he takes his rest now in creation and takes his place over this perfect creation, it is beneficial for me to be related to this creation this way. And then it says he made it holy. First time that is said. First time. Made it holy. Set it apart for himself. This is unique for him. Now, when this model is given to Israel, and I want to stress it's given to Israel as a nation, 2 things are stressed. In Exodus 20:11, we keep quoting that. Israel was to remember their Creator. He says, well, let's turn there so you can see it. Let's go back to verse 8. By the way, I want to suggest to you that the Sabbath day for Israel was not primarily a day off, although it was that. He says, do no labor. But what's the very first word in the command, verse 8? Remember. There's some things you're supposed to remember concerning the 7th day, the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you will not do any work, you, your son, your daughter, your male servant, your female servant, or livestock, or the sojourner that is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, that is all that is in them, and rested. The 7th day, therefore the Lord blessed the 7th day and made it holy. So what is he saying? Remember the Sabbath day, and specifically your Creator. One Jewish rabbi said, for 6 days We work in the creation. On the seventh day, we remember the Creator. You remember God as Creator. But look at Deuteronomy. The second time the law is stated, Deuteronomy, second law. It's the recounting of the law, chapter 5, verse 15. Verse 12 is the beginning of the Sabbath day command. 6 days. Verse 13, you'll work and do your work. Labor and do your work. Verse 14, the seventh day is a Sabbath, the Lord your God. On it you will not do any work. Why? Verse 15, you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. The Lord your God brought you out from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Why do they remember it here? Second reason, because God is not just their creator, he is their redeemer. He brought them out of slavery. So, what do we do? What do we do with this idea of Sabbath? Gave it to Israel. What are we supposed to do with it? Well, remembering God as creator, remembering God as redeemer, I will suggest to you that the rest that Israel was to experience one day in 7 is a rest believers are to find continually in Jesus Christ. It is not for no reason that Jesus said in Matthew chapter 11, 28 and 30, come to me all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you what? Rest. I will give you rest. If you go to Hebrews, a book that tries to take the stories of Israel and show how God is greater in the new covenant through Jesus than he was through the old covenant and the law and Moses and all that it had, he talks about Sabbath rest, talks about how they didn't enter into Sabbath rest. But he says in Hebrews chapter 4, verse 3, present tense. Hebrews 4, verse 3. For we who have believed enter that rest. What rest? The rest that he spoke of when he said, I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. You enter it. Why? Because you believe. Just as the greatness of the new covenant is shown over the greatness of the old covenant, Israel had a Sabbath day. We have a continuing Sabbath rest that we'll experience fully, chapter 4 tells us, in the new heaven and new earth. But every time you trust God, every time you rest in him, every time you say, I'm not trusting what I can do to make myself right with God, I'm not trusting the requirements of law, I am trusting Jesus, you are expressing the rest that says God is enthroned. I am remembering my Creator, my Redeemer. That's why Paul could say some consider days special, others say they're all the same. Let each decide. At this point, it's not an issue anymore. Well, what applications can we draw? First, we live in a fallen world. We don't have all of the beauties, all the glories that were here before. But the amazing amount of good we still experience is the continuing testament to the good that our good God has built in. This is a fallen world, but it is still a beautiful one. This is a fallen world, but it is a world where the ground still yields fruit for us. It is a fallen world, but God still governs land and sea. And while sin and the curse has brought disruption, not one of those disruptions happens outside of his control. Our good God is still good. We live in a fallen world, but as the children of this Creator God, we recognize that our Creator God, Jesus, is the Savior whose word spoke it all into existence, whose word holds it all together, but whose word also speaks to us of even better things, of a hope that one day he will return and restore, that one day he will judge the wicked, and he will give the righteous the fullness of their rest. That all who believe in him can find that rest. And by his word, we are looking for new heavens and new earth, wherein righteousness dwells. We live in a fallen world, but the God who rested on the seventh day has given us a rest that we can find in Jesus, a rest that says when we trust him, when we believe him, we can sing, Jesus, I am resting in the joy of what thou art. I am finding out the greatness of your loving heart. And we live in a fallen world, but we have an incredible privilege. A privilege and a responsibility to respond as creation seeks to do, even though it groans and waits for that redemption. Creation still seeks to obey. Creation still seeks to honor and worship. Creation should lead us to obey and respect and worship in awe the God to whom creation continues to witness. I want to close by letting you be reminded once again of the incredible witness of creation, the call of creation to worship this God who made it all.